Welcome to Mr. Brand's 5th grade Everyday Math Review. In this lesson, we're going over 6.12, division of decimals by decimals. And the first sample problem we're going to do is 9 1/10 divided by 2 6/10. In order for us to divide a decimal by a decimal, we're going to start by looking at the divisor right here. And in order to do some paper pencil division, we need to turn our divisor into a whole number. So to do that, I'm going to move the decimal one place to the right, which is the same thing as multiplying by 10. If I multiply the divisor by 10, I also have to multiply the dividend by 10. So I'm going to multiply that by 10. So my decimal ends up there. So my new problem is 91 divided by 26. And I like to use bobbleheads as examples when we talk about this. So I've got my little stick figure here. If I want to make my stick figure bigger, this isn't exactly perfect, but my head got bigger and my body got bigger. It's the same proportion. That's what we did with these numbers here. By multiplying them both by 10, we keep the same proportion, or maybe I should say the same ratio. If I only multiply my divisor by 10, I might end up with something like this. Okay, end up with a bobblehead. The head's much too bigger for the body. To avoid the bobblehead, I have to make sure again that I do the same thing to both the dividend and the divisor. Hopefully that makes sense to you. So now I'm going to go ahead and solve this problem. So I have 91 divided by 26. And for this one, I'm going to think about 26 as being close to 30. And how many 30s can I get from 9? Well, I can't get any 30s from 9, but I know I can get 3 30s from 91. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to try 26 times 3. 6 times 3 is 18. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So 78. I can't add another 26 to 78 and still be less than 91. So I'm going to go with 3. 3 times 26 is 78. We're going to subtract. 11 minus 8 is 3. 8 subtract 7 is 1. So I have 13 is less than 26. Since we're dividing by a decimal, we're not going to do a remainder. At least I don't have my students do a remainder. So in order to continue the problem, I have to add a decimal point here and a 0. So like we did in the previous video, we slide our decimal point up. I can bring down my 0 for 130. Now I have 130 divided by 26. Kind of getting a little lopsided here. Now I need to figure out how many groups of 26 can I get from 130. And again, I'm going to round and think about 30. So using the tens place here, the 3, how many 3's can I get from 1? Can't get any. How many 3's can I get from 13? I can do 4. So I'm going to try 26 times 4, although I think I'm going to need to do at least one more here. 6 times 4 is 24. 2 times 4 is 8, plus 2 is 10, so that's 104. Well, that's too small, so I'm going to try 26 times 5. 6 times 5 is 30. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 3 is 13. So 130 and 130, that's going to work. So I can get 5 groups of 26 from 130, 5 times 6 is 130. Then I subtract, and I get 0. 0 is less than 26. There's nothing more to bring down. So since I kept the ratio the same by multiplying both the divisor and the dividend by 10, I know that 9 1/10 divided by 2 6/10 equals 3 5/10. Okay, let's move on to our next sample problem. I'm going to switch up the color here. And our next problem we're going to do is 4 64/100 divided by 0 29/100. Like we did previously, I have to make the divisor, remember the number we're dividing by is the divisor. We need to make that a whole number. So for this, I have to move the decimal twice to make it a whole number. So that's times 10 times 10, which is 100. So we could think about it as times 100, or we could even think about it as times 10 to the second. When I come over here to the dividend, the number that's being divided, to multiply it by 100, so that's going to be my times 10 again for 100. So my decimal point ends up there. So my new problem is going to be 464 divided by 29. So I'm going to come over here now for this one. 464 divided by 29. I can't get any groups of 29 from 4. And 29, like the previous one, if we thought about that as 30, I can only get one group of 30 from 46. So I'm going to go with a 1. 1 times 29 is 29. And we subtract. 16 subtract 9 is 7. 3 subtract 2 is 1. So we have 17. 17 is less than 29. So I'm going to bring down the 4. So now I have 174 divided by 29. And thinking about 30 again, it's just a little bit easier for me to think with a landmark number like 30. So looking at the tens place the 3, how many 3s can I get from 1? There's no groups of 3 in 1. There are 5 groups of 3 in 17. So I'm going to try 29 times 5 off to the side. 9 times 5 is 45. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 4 is 14. Let's try 6. 29 times 6. 9 times 6 is 54. 2 times 6 is 12, plus 5 is 17. And it's exactly 174. So I know that there are 6 groups of 29 and 174. 6 times 29 is 174. If we subtract, we get 0. There's nothing more to bring down. We don't need to worry about a decimal with this problem. So again, because we kept the ratio between the two numbers the same, I know that 4 64/100 divided by 29/100 equals 16. Okay, for our practice problems on these home links, we're doing some adding, and I'm going to write them horizontally first. So we have 17 64/100 plus 8 93/100. Remember, when we are adding decimals, we have to make sure that the decimals line up. So I have 17 64/100 plus 8 93/100. My decimals are lined up, so I can go ahead and add. 4 hundredths plus 3 hundredths is 7 hundredths. 6 tenths plus 9 tenths is 15 tenths. 1 plus 7 is 8 plus 8 is 16. And 110 plus 110 is 2 tens. So my answer for 17.64 plus 8.93 is 26 and 57 hundredths. For my next problem, I'm going to do 12 and 26 hundredths plus 13 and 5 tenths. Just like in the previous problem, we have to make sure that we add up the we have to line up the decimal points. So 12 and 26 hundredths plus 13 and 5 tenths. If you notice, there's not a digit here. So we can either leave it alone, or if you want, you can add a digit there. I like to add a 0 there. Just helps me think about it better. And it helps me make sure my problems are lined up. So 6 hundredths plus 0 hundredths is 6 hundredths. 2 tenths plus 5 tenths is 7 tenths. Bring down my decimal. 2 plus 3 is 5, and 110 plus 110 is 2 tens. So my answer for that problem is 25 and 76 hundredths. Hopefully this video is helpful. I know it can be confusing as we're moving the decimals around, but if you get confused, make sure you ask your teacher for some help. And thanks for watching the video. Hope to see you in the next one.